We got a brand new snapshot today, and as always, I am more excited about the data pack features than the actual new content. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. New command is pretty cool, probably won't end up using it myself. New item component seems promising, and would you look at that, the very first one on the list is already revolutionizing how we do data packs. Now, why do I say that, you ask? Well, for those of you who are new to the channel, or those of you who may have forgotten, I am very interested in right-click detection, and specifically right-click detection without using any ticking commands. I have made a couple tutorials on right-click detection on my channel in the past, and some of you may remember these three items that I've got in my hand right here. The continuous flame wand, which you can right-click to just constantly summon particles. The burst charm, which of course you can hold down with right-click to summon particles, but with a little bit of delay in between each one. And the impulse gem, which you can right-click to summon particles, and then it won't summon particles again until you release and click again. Now, in my opinion, these are all pretty powerful methods of achieving right-click detection. But if you remember from one of my last videos, one of their major downfalls is that as long as I am right-clicking, I get slowed down, I'm prevented from sprinting, and I move at this, abysmal speed. Well, lo and behold, today's snapshot added a new component that can completely reverse that. I've gone ahead and shown an example of that on the continuous flame wand, right? So I've gone ahead and added this use effects component. I said speed multiplier is 1, which means, the speed doesn't change, and then I've said can sprint true, which means I can sprint while I'm using this item. And so, finally, at long last, while clicking with the continuous flame wand, as you'll see, I am not being slowed down. I can even start sprinting with it, and this looks absolutely ridiculous. I love it so much. But yeah, there you have it. If you were previously using my method to do right-click detection, but you were, irked by the fact that you had to be slowed down all the time, that is no longer a problem you have to deal with. All you have to do is whatever item you were using before, just add this component exactly like that. But this component can do more than that as well, as you may have been able to guess by the fact that I had to put in a number here for the speed multiplier. You can freely edit that speed multiplier to whatever you like. It defaults to 0.2, which is the previous behavior that we now see on the burst charm, but it accepts any value between 0 and 1. And so as an example, I've gone ahead and set it to 0 on the impulse gem. If I click with it, I'm pressing the arrow keys right now, I straight up cannot move. As soon as I start clicking with it, it completely freezes me in place, and I can no longer move. Even if I jump, normally if I have slowness, I can kind of get around it by jumping, but with this speed penalty, I can no longer move even if I'm in the air, which is also a pretty powerful feature that I think we could easily make pretty good use of. Obviously, I accomplished that by just setting the speed multiplier to 0. But okay, you saw the title, I know what you're really here for, and I'll make you wait no longer. I've gone ahead and added one last recipe to the game, and that is the laser punch wand. If I just put this in my main hand and left click with it, it will spawn particles away from my face. I'm not punching any invisible entities. If I turn hitboxes on, you'll be able to see that my hitbox is the only one present. Oh, and that blue view line now looks very different. That's interesting. I guess that's also another feature of this new snapshot. Oh, and I just noticed that when I turn my head a certain way, the little lightning rod on my head just disappears. I don't know what that's about. This is a very buggy snapshot apparently. But anyway, okay, enough with the distractions. This is left click detection, you guys. We've never had anything like this before. This is amazing. So okay, how exactly did I manage to accomplish this? If I scroll down further in the changelog, we'll come to this component right here called piercing weapon. Now this is a component that you can add to any item to basically allow that item to perform the same jab attack as the spears. So these new spears that were just added in this snapshot have basically two modes of attack. You can hold right click to turn them into kinetic weapons, and then anything you run into will take damage that way. Or you can perform a simple melee attack and it will jab forward, right? And that can actually penetrate through multiple entities, unlike, a regular sword or a regular punch or something like that. That jab attack is enabled by this component. Now you may be thinking, okay, how exactly am I going to make use of this? Well, if I keep scrolling down even further, they added a new enchantment effect component called post-piercing attack. In vanilla, it is used with this new lunge enchantment so that whenever you left click with a spear, it will throw you forward by a little bit, which is pretty cool. I like that a lot. But of course, the upshot is that it triggers whenever you left click, and that triggering is caused by this effect component. Now this is an entity effect component, which means it can run any sort of entity effect that enchantments can allow, which of course includes functions. You may be starting to see where I'm going with this. The idea here is that we're first going to use this component to turn some item into an item that's capable of performing one of those jab attacks, and then we're going to use this enchantment effect component to detect whenever that happens. And if you hook it up to a function, then that can do pretty much anything. And that is exactly what I have done with this laser punch wand. So if I just left click, it will always play those particles that are hooked up to a function I've got in my data pack. Here's what the enchantment looks like. As you can see, it's basically just got all of the bare bones fields that are required for any enchantment. Its effect has this post-piercing attack, which is simply just hooked up to a function, and then the function can do literally just whatever I want. I mean, I just played a bunch of particles. I mean, I guess I totally could have ray traced this, but I was kind of too lazy to do that. It's really that simple. Now, in terms of the item itself, there is a little bit of work to be done as well, and here is the item definition for that item. So the important thing to notice is that I've got piercing weapon as a component on here, and I've changed its, min reach, max reach, hitbox margin. I've set all of these to 0. They default to not being 0, and if they're not 0, then that will allow you to perform an actual piercing attack that can damage entities. So if you set all of these to 0, then that functionality will be disabled, and you'll be left with an item that just has left click detection. Now, as for the detection itself, it's got an enchantment on it, that same enchantment that I showed you earlier. And then of course you can use these two components to hide that enchantment if you wish. And with all that put together, you've got left click detection. Now, there are some weird quirks with it. You cannot break blocks with this item, even if you're in creative mode. Like, I'm punching these blocks and nothing is happening, which is actually exactly the same thing with the spears, right? Spears cannot break blocks at all. Even if you're in survival mode, like, you can't mine blocks with them. It just performs that jab attack. The other thing is that by setting all these fields to 0, you actually do completely remove your ability to damage entities with it. So if I try to punch this creeper, nothing will happen. The particles will spawn, but I won't actually be able to do any damage to him unless I switch to, an empty hand or something. But other than that, I actually see absolutely no drawbacks with this. It's an item that you can left click and run a function. I mean, how cool is that? So, okay, let's see. What else we got in this snapshot? Enchantments can now apply an impulse to the entity using it, which, as some of you eagle-eyed viewers already seem to have figured out, implies that we can now edit player motion using enchantments, which is very, very cool. I mean, before we had to do some weird janky thing with explosions, which was not very reliable. And in fact, DQuerdEC in my Discord has already started putting together a data pack library for freely editing player motion using this new enchantment method. It's very cool, and if you want to see that, then go ahead and just click the link down in the description to join my Discord. You can see it for yourself. And now, as we have already seen, this is an immensely cool snapshot from a data pack making perspective. As always, I've left this data pack that I have been working out of down in the description below if you want to take a look at it and play with it yourself. Who knows what kind of stuff we'll be getting in the coming weeks. I hope it's more cool stuff like this. But until then, I have been Conyer. Thank you so much for watching as always. I will talk to you later, my dudes.